Hello and welcome. My name is Angie Holden and I'm the blogger behind The Country Chic Cottage. Today we're going to talk about the WeCreat Vista laser. So I did want to say that WeCreat sent me the Vista ahead of time so I could do this review. So the launch is today and I will talk a little bit more about the launch and pre-ordering this machine at the end of this video. Now this is a new laser from WeCreat. It is a different laser than they had in the past. So this is the WeCreat Vista and this is the one we're going to cover today. I will cover the differences between it and the one beside it here, which is the WeCreat Vision. You can see that these are very different. So we're going to cover the WeCreat Vista, and this is the first laser that I'm aware of that has a flippable laser head. That means that you don't have to have risers to do things like tumblers with a rotary tool. So it will do those tumblers by flipping the laser head, which is a really cool innovation in laser crafting. So we're going to cover this laser, what comes with it, how to set it up, make a few projects, do pros and cons, and of course compare it to the other WeCreat laser. So we're going to compare the new Vista to the Vision laser, which was their original laser. So let's take a look, first of all, at what comes with the WeCreat Vista. In the box, you'll get the detachable tray, 2 laser beds, a USB and a power cord, exhaust hose and clamp. If you ordered the bundle with the rotary accessory, you will get that, along with several attachments for the rotary accessory, some sample boards where they have tested the laser, and you can see score and engraving on those, an air assist, a toolkit, and some tools. I do also want to note that you do get some risers within the packaging, and you would only use those if you wanted to engrave really thick things, or if you need a bit more room to engrave something like a 40-ounce tumbler. You don't necessarily need the risers, and I won't even be installing them in this video or using them. So now that we have the contents of the package out, let's take a look at setting up this laser. To set up, you will start by unboxing the laser and removing all packaging material. Then inside there are 4 screws to remove, and you will get 2 silicone plugs to add to the holes on both sides of the laser. Then you'll hook your cords up and your exhaust to the back of the laser. So we're going to hook the power cord up as well as the USB. You only need the USB to connect your laser to Wi-Fi. Once you have it connected to Wi-Fi, you will not need that cord anymore. And then you do want to add the exhaust assembly itself, and you'll need to vent out a window or purchase the air purifier separately. You also want to connect the air assist. It has a power connection as well as an air connection on the back of the WeCreat Vista. And then you'll connect the other end of the air connection to the air assist itself. The other end of the exhaust pipe will go either out your window or to an air purifier that you will purchase separately. Add the removable tray by sliding it in from the front. You might find that picking up the front of the laser makes it a bit easier to insert this. And then you're going to add the laser beds inside. And now the setup of this one is complete. And all you need to do now is download the WeCreat Make It software, and we'll use that USB cord that we connected to connect it to our computer. Then you can set up your Wi-Fi connection and then not use this USB cord anymore. As always, we're going to pause here and cover laser safety. There are many safety features within the WeCreat Vista, such as the top that allows you to watch the laser without damaging your eyes. It has an auto stop feature. If you were to ever lift the lid, it would stop automatically. You also need to vent this, as I've said, out a window or purchase a separate air purifier, because laser fumes do need to be vented out of your space. Now you always want to keep a fire extinguisher, fire blanket, or both on hand. However, the WeCreat Vista does have fire detection and will automatically shut off if it detects a fire within the laser itself. And finally, you only want to cut laser compatible materials. There are some materials that can be toxic when cut with a laser, so always make sure that the materials you're cutting say they're laser compatible and do your research on that. I do have a full video on laser safety, and I will link to that in the description below this one. Before we get started making those projects, let's take a look at a few of the features of the WeCreat Vista. The first thing I want to talk about is that this laser does have a camera. However, it's a bit different than other laser cameras that you might be familiar with. This camera operates when the lid is open. The camera is actually on this front edge, and when it's open, it allows you to create a perfect view of the bottom of the laser. So this is going to allow you to locate your cuts, and we are going to use this feature to locate our cuts on the material for our example projects. Now, if you've seen WeCreat's other laser, which is beside me here, the WeCreat Vision, it auto lifts. So it lifts up to adjust the height. You don't need an auto lift feature with the WeCreat Vista because the laser head flips. So let's take a closer look at that laser head. Now the version I have is the 10-watt WeCreat Vista. You can get a 2-watt laser head for things like engraving, so that infrared laser head does really great engraving projects on a variety of materials. And you can actually swap them very easily with the new features of the WeCreat Vista. So let's take a closer look at the laser head itself, how it is installed in the WeCreat Vista, and how it flips for when you use that rotary tool. Before you get started flipping the laser head, you want to remove the laser beds as well as turn the laser off. First, we'll take a look at flipping the laser head. So if you wanted to do something with the rotary accessory, you would need to flip the laser head. So this is the 10-watt laser head that's installed. To flip it, you'll want to pull it to the front of the machine. Then there are silver thumb screws on both sides, and we're going to loosen those all the way up. And when you loosen them, they'll sort of pop out. And once they've popped out on both sides, I can just rotate the laser head. And the fans are pointing towards me or towards the front of the machine, and the laser is pointed away from me and towards the back of the machine. And then you would just tighten those thumb screws back up on both sides. So the flip laser head will allow you to do things on the rotary accessory in this area without needing to raise the laser up. Now this is also the first steps for changing the laser head out. So this is the 10-watt laser head. If I wanted to add, say, the 2-watt laser head for engraving, so the first step is to flip the laser head. And then there are 4 screws in the back, and you would loosen those up, as well as remove this air assist from the side. As you completely remove these screws, you do want to be sure to hold on to the laser head. Once all 4 of these are out, then you will just remove the laser head from the machine. There is one electrical plug that you'll need to remove from this version and add to your new laser head. Then the new laser head, you would loosen the screws to flip the bracket. You can flip that bracket up, tighten those screws back, and then just reverse the process. Add the 4 screws into the bracket and just flip the new laser head back up. And then the 2-watt laser head doesn't require air assist, so you would just move that cord out of the way to use the 2-watt. Now, this is way easier than changing on the original WeCreat Vision, so it is an easier process. However, there are still a few steps. I went ahead and put the 10-watt laser head back in so I could make some projects with it. So I added it back in the same manner and tightened the 4 screws. For the 10-watt, you'll need to add the air assist back. And the first project I'm going to do is to cut and engrave wood. So I do need to flip the laser head back up so it can cut and engrave on the bottom surface. So just flip it back up and retighten the screws. And now we're ready to make our first project. Open the WeCreat Make It software. And for this, I am going to use a cut file, and I will have this file for free in the description below this video. So I'm going to go to File, then Import, and I'm going to find the file on my computer. I am using an SVG file for this, however you can upload other file types. Once I've uploaded my SVG file, I have 2 layers. The first layer I want to make a cut layer, and the second layer I do want a fill engrave. Now we can click here at the material type, and this is the material type that I'm going to use. And you can see in the corner different options. You could choose from a variety of options on this screen to get the look that you want. So for my fill engrave, I'm going to go with a power of 10, and we'll do a speed of about 15. 1 pass. For the cut, because I have my material picked, it should have the correct cut settings. So now I'm going to add my material to the laser. And remember, I am leaving the lid open at this stage. And I'm going to click refresh on the screen. And now we can see the material actually in the laser. You can see I had it a little crooked, so I adjusted it, hit refresh again, and now it looks a little bit better. Now I can pick both of my layers, and I can move them around on this wood to be however I would like them to be. You could also use this to resize if you needed to. I feel like about 6.5 inches long is good for a bookmark, so I'm going to leave it like that. You also want to make sure that laser flat is picked up here. Laser cylindrical would be where we would flip the laser head and use the rotary tool. Auto pass-through is an optional accessory where you would add that and then use an auto pass-through feeder. Now that we have our material inside, we're going to go ahead and click auto measure. And you do this with the lid open, and the machine uses the camera to auto measure the distance. Now I'm going to go ahead and close the lid and click start. The WeCreat Vista will then cut and engrave this bookmark. I click start at this time. I see that I'm going to have a 30-minute processing time, so I'm going to cancel that out. And that is because I wanted that very dark engraving. However, I can probably make it a little less dark. So we go a power of 100 and a speed of 100. That should be closer to what I'm looking for. So I'm going to click start again. And you can see how much the processing time changed just with those small changes. So I could definitely go with the darker engraving. However, it will take me much longer to make my bookmark. Now I'll just press send to send it to the WeCreat Vista. Once the processing's complete, lift the lid, and then you can remove your project from the laser, and you can see that I have an adorable bookmark just ready to add a tassel and add to a book. So here's that finished wood bookmark with the engraving at the top, and for each of the bookmarks I'll just add a tassel to the bookmark to complete it. So now let's cut acrylic with this same design so we can see the differences. So I'm going to go ahead and add my acrylic to the laser. Now this is a piece I've used for other things, so I wanted to show you how a piece that you've already cut will look. So I'm going to click refresh, and now you can see within the laser that I can see this sheet and I can see all the cuts I've made on it before. So I can pick both my layers and I can move them to where they're not going to be over any of those past cuts. We do want to change the material, so I'm going to change it to acrylic. So I'm going to change it to acrylic black 3mm. So we're going to click confirm. For the cut on the acrylic that I used, I ended up with 100% power, 3 on the speed, and 2 passes. That is a setting that worked best for me. The engraving settings I ended up using was 100% power, 70 speed, 1 pass, and that is for acrylic. And now we can click auto measure with the lid still open. Then go ahead and close the lid and click start. We can see the processing time is about the same. I'm going to go ahead and click send to send it to the WeCreat Vista. And you do want to be sure to vent out a window or turn your air purifier on before you send. And the WeCreat Vista will engrave and cut the acrylic. Once again, once that's complete, we can remove it from the WeCreat Vista. For the acrylic, before I remove the masking, I am going to add some paint to that engraving. So I'll add a few coats of the paint just to hopefully make the engraving pop a little bit more once we remove the masking. Once the paint has dried on the acrylic bookmark, we can start to lift off that masking. And you can see that the paint really does make the engraving pop. It is optional to add the paint, however, I feel like it adds just a little something extra. And here's the completed acrylic bookmark, and you can see just how great that engraving looks. And I will add a tassel to the end similar to the other one. Now we're gonna make a tumbler by flipping that laser head. But the first thing we need to do is assemble the rotary accessory. Rotary accessory is an optional purchase, an optional add-on. And you get this piece that we need to assemble and attach to the laser. And then there's another piece that you can use to level the tumbler itself. For this piece, you need to assemble the pieces to the chuck. Now there are a variety of pieces depending on the tumbler or object that you're going to engrave. I'm going to try these first, and then I can change them out if I need a different set for the particular tumbler that I have chosen. To assemble these, I'm just going to add 2 screws to each of the pieces and put them onto this chuck assembly. Then we'll take a look at adding this entire assembly to the WeCreat Vista. Next, I've turned the laser off as well as removed the laser beds, and I'm going to repeat the same process for flipping the laser head to the position to use the rotary tool. The screws to add the rotary tool are on the left. We'll start by removing them. Take the piece where we just assembled the chuck and we'll add it over here into location, and then add those same screws back to hold it into place. Then finally you'll need to connect the power for the rotary tool to the back of the machine. Then to add the tumbler, you can use your chuck key to loosen or tighten the chuck. Get it to where your tumbler fits in there, and then tighten it down. You'll want to add this second piece under this side of the tumbler most of the time to help to level everything out. There is a level that comes with the WeCreat Vista. So what we're going to do now is get this as level as possible and this chuck as tight as possible. There is a screw here that you can turn to raise and lower this end of the tumbler to help get your level. So I ended up turning this entire tumbler over and gripping this side. This bottom was just too rounded and it kept slipping in the chuck. How did I know that? I put it in the chuck and just kept turning it, watching to see if it loosened up or got crooked. And as I turned it, when it was the other way, it would get crooked. This way, it stays perfectly straight and in the chuck the entire time. So this is a better way to engrave this tumbler. Because each tumbler is different, the only way you're going to know is to put it in and test it out and try and see if everything stays straight when you turn it. Next, you are going to want to measure the tumbler itself. The machine does come with a tape measure, and I'm just going to measure that circumference. Then we'll head into the WeCreat Make It software and change to laser cylindrical. It is going to remind you that you need to install the rotary set, which we've already done, and you can see that everything has changed on the screen. I'm going to take our design, move it over here. For the design, I don't need a cut anymore. I'm going to click that outer layer and I'm going to click split. And now I can remove the outer cut as well as the hole that was for that bookmark. And then for these cuts, I can change them to a fill engrave and merge them back together. And actually I can pick everything at this point and merge it together. So now we have one design that is all a fill engrave. I am going to also measure my tumbler this way to make sure that my graphic will fit. It's only about 5 inches with everything removed, and I think it would look better. I'm going to lock the dimensions. I think it would look better at about a 6-inch. So now we have a 6-inch by 2.5-inch graphic. We can click the material and we can see some options. I know that this tumbler has a fairly thick coating on it as I've worked with the tumbler before. And right now it's sitting at a power of 78, speed of 158. So I think I'll just up the power and reduce the speed just slightly. Then click anywhere around here to the outside, and we need to put a perimeter and a diameter in. When I measured all the way around, it was 9.625. So I can put that into the perimeter and it gives me a diameter of about 3 inches. I can actually measure on the bottom and double check that, and it's pretty close to right. Actually, you need to rotate the graphic, and we're going to move it slightly to the bottom. Now to locate everything, you're going to turn your laser on and then click refresh. You can see the tumbler inside of the laser. So now we can move this around, and perhaps we want it smaller at this point. Like that seems a little big, so I might go 5.5 instead of 6, and I can just sort of locate it on the tumbler itself. Then you can click the 3D preview button to sort of see what it's going to look like, because it is going to wrap around the cylinder itself. And then we can click start. And the first thing before we start anything, I want to click framing. What that's going to do is to show you where the design is going to go. So I'll click framing. And we can see exactly where the design is going to be on the tumbler. That looks good to me, so I can go ahead and click send and send the design to my WeCreat Vista to engrave it onto this tumbler. Once we click send, we'll just click the button on the front of the WeCreat Vista to start the process. As always, be sure you vent out a window or use an optional air purifier accessory. Once the processing is complete, we can lift the lid, and this really looks good. Now, anytime you engrave tumblers like this, you may need to clean the surface because it may be dusty and dirty. You can see my finger there. So you want to remove it from this and then clean it. So we'll just use the check key to loosen up the clamp, and then we can remove this, and I will head to the sink and clean this up. And here's that final engraving on the water bottle, all cleaned up. It may have went a little deep, but overall I love the engraving on this piece. So now you see me make 3 adorable projects with the WeCreat Vista. So let's compare the WeCreat Vista to that original WeCreat Vision. The biggest difference is going to be the size. So this is the WeCreat Vision, and it does the auto lift feature. So it auto lifts depending on the size of the piece you put inside. However, in its resting position, it is all the way up, just like you see it. So you can see that the difference between these two in size is rather big. They are similar in size, length, and width-wise, but the height difference between these two is significant. I do like the height of the Vista way better. I found that the Vision in its resting position up high was very tall, and it was hard to get inside there and get your materials inside. Now the Vista that I reviewed has a 10-watt laser head, and there is a 2-watt infrared option that I showed you how to change out in the Vista. The Vision, on the other hand, there is a 20-watt and a 40-watt version, and then a 2-watt infrared head as well. So you may find if you do the Vista, the 10-watt version, you may find it's a little slower and may have a few more restrictions than something with more power like a 20-watt Vision. And then of course one of the biggest differences is that the Vision has that auto lift feature, whereas you don't need that with the Vista because it has that flippable laser head. So you just flip the laser head and can still engrave on tumblers without the need of risers. Now, like I mentioned, the Vista does come with a set of 4 risers. If you need to engrave something super thick or super large tumblers, it may be a little more convenient with the risers added to it, but I did not need them for the water bottle that I made. Now the workable area on both of these is roughly the same. On the Vista, it is 16.34 inches by 11.42 inches, and on the Vision it is 16.94 by 11.42 inches. So a very similar working area between the two. So now let's talk about pros and cons of the WeCreat Vista. My pros include I love the camera option and that it's in the front, and so it works when you have the lid open. So this gives you a much bigger area and a much better picture of your laser bed. If you've ever used a laser with a camera, oftentimes they are used when the lid is closed, and it uses a fisheye lens, and that can distort things as it gets wider. This technology with the lid being open gives you a better image of that surface, and that means that your locations will be more accurate no matter where you place them on your material. Another pro is of course that flippable laser head. So that means that you don't have to fool with risers. You can just flip the laser head. It is very easy to flip and start engraving on things like those tumblers. So that's probably my favorite feature of this laser overall, is that you can flip that laser head and you don't have to worry about adding a riser to this one. Now this laser comes with an air assist, another one of my favorite features. I do love an air assist with a laser, and because it comes with this machine standard, to me that is a huge pro because you get the air assist when you order the Vista. They did also make improvements to swapping the laser head with the Vista. It is easier to swap the laser head on the Vista than it was with the Vision. It's still not super easy. I will say that a slight con is that you still have to remove a plug and reattach it, and that makes me a little bit nervous to do. However, it is way easier than it was with the Vision. Just the fact that there are other laser heads available that you can purchase, like that 2-watt infrared head, is a pro, because then you can engrave things like metal with this machine once you purchase that 2-watt infrared head. I do feel like the wattage of the machine is adequate, so I have the 10-watt version. I do feel those are adequate for most users. Now, this is still a diode laser. On the con side, a diode laser traditionally has issues with things that are clear, maybe even light colors or blue colored materials. You might have issues cutting or engraving those. Then another pro is that you can add that rotary accessory, which we saw in action in this video when we engraved that tumbler. And then you can also add on an auto feed, so you could cut and engrave even longer materials if you added the auto feed option to your WeCreat Vista. I seriously didn't have a ton of cons with this one, I'm just going to be honest. It was easy to set up, easy to use. I liked a lot of the features. I feel like it is very innovative laser, and it is really great for those at-home crafters. The software may have a learning curve just because you're new to WeCreat perhaps and have never used WeCreat Make It. And then just the con overall that it is a diode laser, so it will have some restrictions. However, overall, this is a great laser for the money. So my personal opinion, overall review is this is a really great laser, really great value for the money. And right now, so I am launching this video on the launch date. Right now you can pre-order this laser. When you pre-order between September 18th and October 14th, 2024, you can save up to $1,400 depending on the package that you purchase. So for instance, just the basic package, so just the Vista with the Air Assist, no rotary tool that we showed in this video, regular price is $13.99. However, if you pre-order, you could get it for $6.99. For a laser of this size, that is an incredibly low price and an incredible deal. However, all of the packages are on sale like that. So I will, in the description below this video, I will put links to all of the packages so you can pre-order. Remember to pre-order early. Otherwise, if you catch this video later, you will have to pay that full price or hopefully maybe catch a sale at that time. So now all that's left for you to do is to decide if the WeCreat Vista is the right laser for you. And if it is, catch it at that pre-order price if possible. If not, order at a later date. I still think you are going to love the WeCreat Vista. It's still a really great price, even at full price in my opinion, but of course a sale is always better. So now, if you have any questions about the WeCreat Vista, ask those in the comment section, and also tell me what else you would like to see me make with this machine. If you want to see more videos with the WeCreat Vista, leave comments below and tell me what you would like to see me make, and I will try to fit those into my schedule. Now, if you liked this video, give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, head on over to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. We have videos just like this one every single week, and trust me, you don't want to miss any of those. So thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.